Hello, everyone. It's Morgan Harper Nichols here, and today I want to talk about something that I've been holding back on. Today, I listened to a podcast episode of the Creative Pep Talk where Andy J. Pizza was talking about where have you been holding back as an artist, and I've just been thinking about that all day, and it kind of reminded me of something that has been sort of on my mind for a while, and that is sort of like this tension of being an artist and then being someone who talks about or teaches art. And I've heard things in the past about how, like, okay, if you're someone who is an artist, then you don't have time to teach. And if you are someone who teaches, then, it's probably because you couldn't make it as an artist. And I just don't think that's true. I don't think it's that black and white, like teachers versus artists. However, that's something that I have been applying to myself. Over the past few years, I've had opportunities to be an artist and have opportunities as an artist that I never would have thought would be possible. And sometimes I kind of get in my own way a little bit and I start saying that even though I'm very passionate about teaching others and I love to teach other people how to create and how to sort of ignite these things that are inside of them, even if it's nothing more than to just feel a journal, like to actually have a journal and fill it to the last page, even if it's nothing more than just that. I'm so fueled by helping people do that and by connecting with people in that way. However, I talk myself out of so much that I actually probably really want to do and feel called to do, just because I'm like, well, I've got to be an artist. People expect me to be like inspiring and encouraging in this way all the time. And while I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be that, when I write something, when I share something on Instagram and it comes out in the form of 10 words and there's artwork behind it, there are thousands upon thousands of words and stories and experiences and colors and senses and all of these things that had to accumulate in order for that thing to exist. And lately I've been feeling like I'm only sharing this tiny bit of it. And I love sharing that, and I feel incredibly grateful that I get to share that. However, I know I have been so deeply moved in my life by people who were willing to sort of like pop off the lid and show me a little bit of what got them where they are and how they're able to do this. So yesterday I did a live stream where on Instagram where I was just making art, and I shared the art as I was making it, and I was sharing my process of how I'll make a painting and then I'll duplicate the painting and I'll make another painting on top of it. And I'll typically do that until I have like 100 paintings. And the reason why I do that is because it allows me to sort of experiment with colors and textures and shapes and all these things. And I put on the live stream, I was like, hey guys, I'm not going to be talking, I'm just painting. And I just started painting. And then at one point I glanced up and I looked at the comments, and people were just sharing the most encouraging words, and I was just showing my process, which that really shocked me because I've kind of worked myself into this box where I'm like, well, I can't show my process. I've got to show the final product. I've got to show the wise 7 words that people expect, or the wise 10 words or 15 words, and it's got to be short and to the point, and it's got to be shareable, when in reality the actual process is very messy. It's all over the place. I'm inspired by all kinds of things. I'm inspired by writers who wrote things 200 years ago and what I just read on the news 2 minutes ago at the same time, and those things collide and there's tension, and it's life. It's just like life. We live every day with the tension of things that happen in the past and things that we hope will happen in the future or won't happen in the future, while all simultaneously trying to be in the present moment. So all of that stuff, all of that life stuff that I talk about, end up writing about, I sort of find the words through the creative experience. So it's not like, okay, I'm out living my life and then I have like these moments where I'm like, oh, there's the wisdom. Okay, time to go make a beautiful piece of art and put the words on top of it. No, it's not that. It's artwork that is integrated into my daily life, in that I create art that's a lot of it's digital, so I have access to it. Where, maybe someone who only works with a specific type of, oil paint or medium, they can only work at a certain time of day, or they can only do this. Well, I work on an iPad, so I've got my iPad, and if I have a moment, then I'm able to sit down, I'm able to create, and I'm able to draw, and I'm able to really just connect and be present right there. And that's just a place where I learn a lot. There's so many times where I'm painting where just memories from childhood will come up, or something that really bothers me or upsets me will come up, or just a positive experience that I just want to remember. And all of that stuff finds its way into the layers of paint. It finds its way into the poetry. And, before you know it, you're saying things like, you're writing about an experience, a feeling, a moment you had at 2 a.m. when you couldn't sleep, or the way that the pattern of the street lights as you're driving down the road. It's all of those little things that I kind of throw into my writing here and there. The tidbits that I write about noticing the light pouring in through the trees, and noticing the light through the half closed blinds. Like, I wish that I could say that I'm just out and about in the world, just taking notes of every little thing I see, but it's not that. My regular everyday life looks pretty average, I think. And then when I sit down and I intentionally journal, create, draw, sketch, paint, all of them, write music, all of those things, that's when all of those experiences, all of those moments, all of those memories, they just start coming. And sometimes it flows naturally, most of the time it doesn't. Like I said, it's messy. I have to kind of scratch away at it, and I have to kind of mix words around. And yeah, I just don't feel like I'm sharing any of that part. And yeah, that's like 95% of it. 95% of it is like the random playlist that I have of like gospel songs, and that one random Counting Crows song, and all of this and all of this stuff, and these little notes, and these photographs from that time, and this color palette that came from the flowers that I saw outside. It's all of that stuff together. So yeah, I hold back on sharing a lot of that, because I don't want to be, I don't want to exclude anyone, because I know that everyone's not an artist. I know everyone's not interested in the intricacies and the all the little details that make the Instagrammable quote come to be. Everyone may not be interested in that. However, I have to be mindful of the fact that, like, okay, if I really want people to understand where I'm coming from, I've got to share that process. I've got to share the story. And it's not about views or likes. It's not about how many people. It's not about the quantity of people that listen or read or say, "Oh wow, that's amazing. That's something I want to try." But it's about the possibility that one person could look at something I'm doing, and maybe for a moment they start to have an experience where they realize that maybe their ordinary life is actually extraordinary. Maybe the things that they overlook every day are actually beautiful. Maybe this life that just seems to be so draining and exhausting and confusing and heavy, we can take all of those things and we can lay them down. And these are lessons that we need to learn in life on a deeply spiritual level. And I'm telling you that when I sit down and I paint, and when I sit down and I write and I scribble in that journal, and I don't care about it being perfect, and I just put the thoughts down without trying to make it look pretty on the page, that is when I am reminded. That is when I am brought back into remembrance of, oh, it is possible for me to grow. It is possible for me to be something more than my thoughts. It's so easy to attach ourselves, like our identity, to our thoughts, the way that we think about ourselves, or the way that we think that other people think about us, or what they've said. And we create whole identities around what we're thinking. And then it's like when you put your thoughts on paper, you're like, oh, those are just thoughts. It's like I've been telling myself all this time that I'm not as good as those people, or I'm not as talented, or I can't try anything new because I failed too many times. I've been saying all this stuff to myself. And I put it down on paper, and I'm like, that's literally all it is. It's just ink on paper. Those thoughts, there they are. Boom, they're on the page now. I can let them go. And, doesn't mean you'll never think about them again. But I think it is incredibly important that people have these outlets. That we have outlets where we can just lay it all out, and we can just express, and we can say those things that are on our minds, that are in our hearts, that we're wrestling with, even as we're struggling to find the words, So, yeah, I'm still actively figuring out, what does it look like to share that? What does it mean to share this part of my creativity? But I want to teach more. I want to be more of a teacher. I remember a few months ago, I asked myself this question. I don't know why, but I was like, if it was 1992, so we're talking about a year before Instagram, before YouTube, before any of that stuff. I was like, if it was 1992 and I was in my hometown, and I'm not in my hometown, I live across the country from my hometown. And I was like, what would I be doing? If I were this age right now, 1992 in my hometown, what would I be doing? A split second later, I said teaching. That is how I answered myself. I said, I'd be teaching. That's what I would be doing. So, and when I think about what I would be teaching, I would be teaching art. I would be teaching creative writing. I would be teaching poetry if I could. Because I know that, those things don't change. They may not change anything. That it's not like, it's not actual medicine that you can take or anything. But I do know that it is an outlet where it can remind you of what truly matters, where you can finally start to remember, like, I'm not alone in this. Someone else felt that. Like, have you ever listened to a song and it's about an experience that you haven't even lived? I listened to a song like that earlier today. I don't remember what song it was, but I remember listening. I'm like, I haven't lived that life. That guy, what he's singing about, I haven't even lived that. But there's a line in the song. I really can't think of what song it was, but there's a line in the song, and I was like, yeah, but I've lived that. That line right there, I know that. I feel what he's talking about in that. And I've had that experience sometimes listening to music that's not even in English. I only speak English, but I've listened to songs where I'm like, I don't even know what they're saying, but whatever they're saying, I know that emotion. I know that feeling. I may not know that experience. I literally don't know the language, but I know that. How did I get on that rant? I don't know. I think I was just talking about the power of creativity and making things, and why I want to speak about it more, and why I want to speak about it more in a way that is teaching and that helps people learn. Also on that episode that I mentioned, that Creative Pep Talk with Andy J. Pizza, he talked about education as an art form, and that just really stuck with me too, because I truly believe that making art and teaching, they can overlap. Storytelling through making art and teaching, they can overlap. They don't have to be these separate things. It's not like you have your art teachers and you have your artists, because I have artists that I look to that I've never attended a lecture of theirs. I've never studied under them. I don't know how they work in detail, but I have learned from them. I've learned very important lessons from them. I listened to a lecture of Kehinde Wiley, and on his work, and it was a lecture. It wasn't like a teaching lecture. It wasn't like a classroom setting. He was, I don't remember the whole thing, but I just feel like he was like presenting his artwork in some capacity. And I learned so many things from just listening to him talk about his life experience. And he's an artist, a very well-known, established, incredible artist. So I learned from him. And then you have teachers, you have people who are literally right now in second grade classrooms, in fifth grade classrooms, in college freshman classrooms who are teaching art. And, maybe right now they're having to teach art over Zoom. And they have beautiful stories. They have beautiful things that they're sharing, but people might not think to look twice because they're an art teacher. And yeah, I just kind of want to challenge that a little bit, and I'm seeking to challenge that more and more with my life and more with my art. especially because I'm just so passionate about it. And I often think about experiences in my life. I have a really sharp memory, much sharper than I want it to be at times. But one of the benefits of that is I remember a lot of really good moments. I remember a lot of good moments where people took the time to teach me and they didn't have to. Where I was just another student. I was just another person, another awkward teenager trying to share their voice, process what they were feeling, trying to figure out what they were going to do with their life. And they looked at me and said, "You're a poet. You're a storyteller. You're an artist. You have something to say. You have good ideas." And I don't know where I would be without those stories. So I feel like it is my duty, it is my responsibility to pass that on. That's why if someone messages me and says, "What brush did you use for that painting? What programs do you use?" I tell them. I don't hold back. They're not secrets. I refuse for them to be secrets. Because there have been too many people in my life who could have been secretive and they weren't. And they chose to be generous. They chose to share. And, there's so many stories of people who literally teach someone and then that person goes on to be more successful or more famous. And I don't care about that stuff. I really don't. Because I know the power of how you taking the wisdom you've gathered, the lessons you've learned, experiences, and then trusting that by being generous with them that they're going to go where they need to go, and you don't have to worry about the accolades or who's gonna step on your toes or who's gonna all that kind of stuff. It's gonna happen. It'll happen either way. I've had people literally copy off me, take my work, steal my work, stuff that I didn't share with them, people I never shared with them personally, and they still go and steal my work and use it against me having ever said that, given them permission to do that. And yeah, so that's gonna happen anyway, unfortunately. I wish it wasn't so, but not everybody has good intentions. Not everybody appreciates and respects artists, writers, creatives. That's gonna happen. Somebody's gonna share your artwork one day and they're not gonna tag you, or they're gonna share a version where your name is wiped off of it. And it sucks. And I hate when it happens. I hate when it happens to other artists, but it happens. And at the same time, there's 100 other people who will make sure that they credit you. And I mean, I kind of exaggerate with 100, maybe not always 100, but there will always be someone else out there who's like, "Yep, I credit you for that. I thank you for that." For me, I have my parents to thank. I have James and Mona Harper. Those are my parents. They encourage me endlessly to the point that I got annoyed at how encouraging they were being to not give up on creativity, to not stop sharing. I have Mr. Milford to thank. He was my English, I think American literature professor in community college my sophomore year, spring semester my sophomore year. And he was the first person who ever read some of my poetry and said, "You have something here. You can do something with this." And it took me, wow, I never thought about that. It took me almost a decade before I could even say I am a poet. It took a decade after that moment. But he sowed a seed in that moment. And there are others. And there's some of their names I don't remember. There's some people who have said things to me and maybe I forgot them. And it's just like buried in my subconscious. And it still meant something to me. And for all those people, I do that for them. I do it because I truly believe that God placed every single one of those people in my life for a reason. And I learned from all of them. And I'm here because of what I've learned from all of those people. So, yeah, to me, that's grace. It's like, okay, yes, I'm here because I also had to learn a lot and study a lot. And I spent a lot of time on this iPad right here and making a lot of art. And at the same time, Who designed the program? Who designed the brushes that I use? Kyle T. Webster. He is the brush designer in my mind. Like, Kyle T. Webster makes the brushes. and yeah, it's writers that I know, and many that are famous, many that aren't famous. There's, Maya Angelou, poet, how could I be a Black woman poet without her example, without her paving the way? I grew up memorizing Langston Hughes poems. He paved the way for people like me. And I have to pass that on. uh, I don't think I'm on that level, obviously, but I have to pass that on. I have to be generous. I have to be. Like, I'm burning with it. and I would love to say it's just because, I'm just such a kind person and all the time and all that. No, I don't always think this way. But I am in a place of my life where I've had enough experiences that I'm really grateful for, and I've really humbled by them, and I'm like, how is this happening? Oh, it's happening because a whole lot had to happen in order for me to be here. And like I said, it's a duty and it's a responsibility to pass it on. Like, there are some days where I'm tired there, and I'm just like, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, and I'll take a break. And there's some days I'm tired and I'm like, I really got to finish this deadline. Like, I got to get to it. And I do, and it's okay. And I remember why I do what I do. I do what I do because of the whole story, because of the whole thing that I'm a part of. It's not, I don't do what I do to impress anyone. I don't to impress a particular person. I don't do what I do to try to climb a particular ladder. If those things end up happening within it, then that's okay. But I know that I have to give. I have to do that. And being generous is incredibly important to me, and I really want to teach more. So, all that to say, I want to teach more. So, if you have anything that you've seen me do that you are like, okay, I would like to learn how to do that, like any specific thing, let me know. And I will try to make something with that in mind. And I want to share that. So I'm going to be sharing a lot more of my creative process and a lot of the why and the what, all the stuff that happens to get the thing to be. And yeah, I'm literally taking deep breaths as I think about that process. And I'm really excited to share that with you. So if you made it this far in this video, thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you in the next one.